Hi, I'm Dave Epstein. Welcome to this edition of Growing Wisdom, and today we're going to talk about chrysanthemums, one of the great bloomers for the fall. Let us start with Red October. This is a really neat little chrysanthemum here. It gets to be about 3 feet. I have put it in this garden. This is a semi-rock garden, not a true rock garden. Some of the plants are just too high. But this will be one of the final things to bloom here. We're at October 6th, and you can see how tight the buds are. That's a nice example of one of these Korean chrysanthemums that really do bloom very late. They love full sun. They do get a little bit leggy. You can prune them back up to mid-June. You know, if you had cut this back, it would stay a little bit tighter. But in general, they're a really nice plant. Here's Red October a few weeks later, just looking amazing with this wonderful color. This is Sheffield Chrysanthemum. This one will bloom a little bit earlier than Red October that I showed you. You can see the buds here will probably open up next week. This got actually eaten by voles a couple of years ago, and I had a tiny little piece left, and within 2 years, boom, it's back again. I like this at the front of the border. I try to keep it tight and pruned during the course of the year so that it doesn't get too big, but this will be spectacular here in just another week. Here's a look at that Sheffield in bloom a few weeks later. Still looking fantastic, as we have not had a frost. These Korean mums do tend to get a little bit leggy, so you definitely want to prune them or stake them or put them in an area where they can really thrive. These are really different than the annual mums, which are tight. They're grown for their flowers. They're not going to come back year to year, unlike this, which is, you know, over 4 feet tall and really almost becomes kind of a little bit of a beast in the garden if you're not careful. Full sun, well-drained soil. The more sun, the more blooms you're going to get. This is Westins Tyler, October 28th. You can see zone 6, how beautiful this is in a warm season. A little flopping because I didn't prune it. But wow, pretty stunning. Of course, the mums you get in the garden center that you are probably most familiar with look like this. And these are bred to be nice and tight. They're not necessarily hardy. They may not come back next year, or if they do, they generally don't look as good. So they come in all sorts of different colors. And I've put mine, obviously, you can hear by the roadway. It's right by the mailbox. I like these plants a lot. I like them for their color. The color doesn't tend to last as long as some of the other mums I showed you, but they are developing more and more of these, and so some of this variety, I suspect, is now hardy, and you can find varieties that, in a sense, used to not be hardy and now are, so you just kind of want to check with the garden center. But to me, there's just these two types, the ones that are perennial and the ones that I use as annuals. Now, I'll take this out once it gets damaged by the freeze, and we'll put something else there in the spring. Some chrysanthemums stay naturally low. So this is a little chrysanthemum I found several years ago at a garden. I don't know exactly the name of it, but the way it grows is almost like a ground cover here, and then it gets the flower that comes up. It does flop over a little bit. You can see this blooms generally in September and early October. This particular year, it's not as covered with flowers as I like, but it really has a daisy-like flower to it. Very different than the Korean chrysanthemums I showed you, and the leaf is much waxier, so you can look for different types of chrysanthemums. I'm going to show you one more. Here's another October bloomer. Now, this used to be considered a chrysanthemum. Now it's a Nippon anthemum. It's the Montauk Daisy. You can see the wonderful little daisy-like flowers here. Little spider. And this still has some blooms, right? It's still going to continue to bloom. We're at October 6th here. Lots of time left before this is done blooming. This is another one of those plants you want to cut back up till mid-June to keep it nice and tight. I also recommend fertilizer, and it does like full sun. Got a little shady this year here in this spot, so that's why we don't have quite as many blooms. I tend to think it smells a little bit like tar when you cut it. Not the best scent in the world, but it is a nice late blooming plant. All right, so there you have it, a few examples of chrysanthemums that are blooming this time of the year. The ones that are hardy, the ones that aren't, and there's something for everybody. And I just love them. They really do add a pop of color here at the end of the gardening season. For Growing Wisdom, I'm Dave Epstein.